Let's talk throughput. Specifically, are you getting all of the throughput that you are actually paying for from your messaging provider, or are they arbitrarily limiting your messages that you can send per minute? Hi, my name is Will Craig. I'm a co-founder of a company called Signal House. We are a messaging provider that specializes in powering connectivity for CRM systems, but we're able to power any messaging from application to person or A2P traffic. And today we're going to be digging into 10DLC throughput, all of the tips and tricks you need to know, and how to identify whether your messaging provider is throttling your messages. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So before we get started, I want to quickly define 10DLC A2P messaging so that we can dig into the specifics of the throughput that are allotted for those individual phone numbers. So 10DLC A2P just stands for 10-digit long code application to person messaging. So it's absolutely a mouthful. And what does that mean? Well, the first part, 10-digit long code, this is just a 10-digit phone number. And these are the phone numbers we're all familiar with, where the first 3 digits correspond to an area code in the United States. A2P, like we defined earlier, just stands for application to person. So this is just transmitting that message from some kind of a software system to a handset, and then from a handset to a software system. And so businesses that want to send messages with a 10-digit phone number go through this A2P registration process. And as part of this registration process, they are providing their business information. They're going over a messaging use case so that anytime they configure a phone number to one of their approved 10DLC messaging campaigns, which is what actually gets reviewed and approved in the 10DLC registration process, they are able to send out messages to their customers. Now, there are specific limits that are in place, however, when it comes to how many messages you are actually able to send. It's basically a safeguard so that someone doesn't steal your EIN, go and sign up for a 10DLC campaign, and then send out 1 million messages to people as you that are scams or spam messaging or whatever the case may be. You don't want your EIN to get blocked. So there are safeguards in place when it comes to throughput. And throughput's really measured by how many messages you can send per minute and how many messages you can send per day. So each major carrier handles this slightly differently. So for AT&T, they measure that per minute. They actually call it transactions per minute, but you can think of it as messages per minute. And if you want to be very technical about it, it is segments per minute. And so what a segment is a 160 character message. So if you have 320 characters, you are looking at 2 segments, and you can obviously scale that up. Now, there are some nuances here. So we have an article on our website all about segments. So if you want to look up Signal House and segments, I'll also link that article in this description of this video, so you have that. But in general, AT&T is going to measure that as how many segments you are able to send per minute. Now, T-Mobile, on the other hand, is going to be measuring how many messages you are able to send each day. So talking about the 2 different types of campaigns, standard and low volume. So we've already discussed that when you are using AT&T, it's going to be per minute, and for T-Mobile, it's going to be per day. So if we look at how many messages on a standard campaign, so this is going to be no limitations as far as volume. As a standard campaign, you're going to have 240 SMSs per minute with AT&T and 120 MMS messages per minute with AT&T and 2,000 per day for T-Mobile. On low volume, you're going to have 75 SMS per minute with AT&T, 50 MMS per minute with AT&T, and again, 2,000 per day with T-Mobile, and a hard cap of 6,000 messages per day on the low volume campaign. Now, here's the part that is important for you to understand, is that I said that you have 2,000 messages per day with T-Mobile on standard and 2,000 messages per day with T-Mobile on low volume. So what gives? Well, the difference is that on a standard campaign, you can actually increase that through a process called standard vetting, where you are given a score depending on different attributes of your business. So for example, how long your business has been around, how many employees you have. Those are the top two most important things that they're reviewing, by the way. But also your any Better Business Bureau issues or lawsuits or whatever the case may be. They're looking at all of that information to determine like a risk score profile associated with your company. Now, the higher the score they give you, the better the throughput. So you can get up to 200,000 T-Mobile per day, so a pretty substantial increase, as well as 4,500 SMS per minute and 2,400 MMS per minute with AT&T. So you're able to increase that throughput pretty substantially with a standard campaign, whereas a low volume, you're locked in those throughput limits. So let's talk about providers. And so providers are going to generally obey whatever the carrier throughput limitations are. So if you are able to send 240 SMS per minute with AT&T, they're going to allow you to send 240 SMS per minute with AT&T. Same with additional vetting. Let's say that you're able to send 4,500 per minute and you want to send out 10,000 messages to AT&T. It should take just over 2 minutes to get all those messages out because you're able to send 9,000 over 2 minutes. So 4,500 per minute. And then there's going to be a tiny little bit, 1,000 left over that are progressed very quickly within that next minute. So what you have to look out for from the message provider level is if they are arbitrarily capping your throughput beyond what the carrier limitations are. So there are some providers out there that will enable you to send 1 message per second, and that's what you're limited to. Your account is limited to 1 message per second or 2 or even 3 messages per second. At 3 messages per second, you're still below a standard campaign's allotment for AT&T. And what if you have 100 different campaigns? What that means is that your customers are going to be waiting a substantial amount of time for their messages to actually go out. And that hurts your customers' bottom line, especially if speed to lead is an important thing. And it also makes it look like your system is slow, or it makes it look like there's massive delays built into your system. So what you need to do is you need to ask your message provider, what are our API throughput limits? And will they ever be limited beyond what the carriers limit us to? And so if you're a single account, they might say, yeah, we let you send 1,000 messages per minute. I'm a single account. I have 1 campaign. Obviously, I'm never going to exceed that unless I go through standard vetting. Now, if I go through standard vetting, I obviously want to have a conversation with that message provider to increase that limit to whatever my score comes out to be. But in general, that's not going to impact you too much. But let's say you're a reseller. So you're reselling to 100 different accounts. That's going to substantially impact how many messages you're able to send out and how snappy your system feels and how responsive the messaging feels, because you're going to send out messages, or your customers are going to send out messages. It's going to take a minute or 2 minutes or even 3 minutes for those messages to actually deliver to someone. And then they're going to get a response back depending on how long it takes the individual to respond back. It's going to feel like there's a lot of delays there. Your time to response is going to be pretty poor because when you're sending that message, there's a time period before the message actually gets delivered to the consumer. So a big question that you have to ask your message provider is, do you cap my throughput limits beyond what the carriers do? And if they say yes, then you have to ask them, what is that limit? How are we able to increase that limit? And is there a cost associated with this? My personal opinion is that message providers should never cap messaging below what a carrier will limit you at. Or if a message provider does, they should not require you to pay to increase this amount. And so ask your message provider, how many messages am I able to send per minute? And do you cap this below what the carriers cap it at? And if they do, your next question has to be, how do I increase this? Is there a cost associated with increasing that? My personal feel is that we as message providers should never limit someone below what the carriers limit them. They're going through the process of registering their campaign, and they have an expectation based on the limits that they're seeing, both that the campaign registry shows them and what's online, of how many messages they are able to send per minute. And they're baking that into their offering. They're letting people know, you're able to send this many messages per minute. You're able to contact this many people. We need to make sure that we're enabling our customers to see that success with the product, because if they see 5-minute delays before their messages go out, you're not going to want to work with that messaging provider. So as a message provider, don't cap people. And if you are looking at different messaging providers, make sure that you ask. We at Signal House, we do not cap you below what the carriers cap you at. So we're going to keep you whatever the carriers keep you. We're going to help you stay in compliance of that as well. Because if you exceed 240 messages per minute with AT&T, then those messages will get filtered out because you're sending them too quick. So we'll make sure that they're sent at the right time and that you are never capped below what the carriers cap you at themselves. And so I hope this video was helpful. I hope you learned something. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We put out message ecosystem videos 5 days a week. We want to make sure that you are educated in your journey using business text messaging. If you want to reach out to me, you are able to do so, will@signalhouse.io. If you want to learn more about our offerings, check out our website, signalhouse.io. Get a demo, reach out to our sales team. We are happy to identify a perfect solution for you and your business. So I hope this was helpful again, and we will see you in the next one.